welcome sports fans to the Inside Sports Studio. I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. Here at Inside Sports. We are changing the world one sport at a time. You can follow us on Twitter at the Inside Sports. Glad you joined us today for this very special edition of the Arizona Sports Report. And lots of things going on there in Arizona. Of course, the Coyotes are in the playoffs. Draft day, how did the Cardinals do? What's up with the Diamondbacks? And what is the future of Steve Nash? I'd like to answer those questions myself, but instead, I've got my main man out there in the desert with his finger on the pulse of everything that is the greater Phoenix area sports scene, none other than Sean Goyle. Sean, the questions are out there. What's going on out there in AZ, man?
Well, like you just said, there is definitely a lot going out here in the Great Valley area. And, Coyotes are doing strong. The D-backs are doing reasonably well. And like you said, Steve Nash is one of the highlights of the Suns. So I say we get down to it and start talking about him.
Okay, you know what? Let's go ahead. AZ Sports Report in full force. We got to talk some Phoenix Suns. They narrowly missed the playoffs, but more importantly, the future of Steve Nash. What's going on out there, man?
Yeah, you're right. They went ahead and lost that second-to-last game against Utah, which knocked them out of the playoffs, and then what could potentially be the final game of Steve Nash in the Suns jersey was against the Spurs. Now, what his future is going to be, that's hard to say because Steve Nash still has enough strength and power in him to be a successful point guard,
right,
even if he's going to be coming off the bench or even as a starter from multiple teams out there that have a chance to go into the playoffs.
Right.
Now, the thing that we've seen out of Steve Nash, other than his great assist title that he's been the number one assist leader for the Suns.
Mm-hmm.
He's also a two-time MVP for the NBA. He's an 8-time All-Star.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be becoming a free agent along with Grant Hill. So we've got two of the main stars of Phoenix potentially going to be leaving. But to be honest with you, just from looking at what his options might be, it might sound crazy to you and some other fans. I think Steve Nash might just fit in with the New York Knicks this coming season.
Ooh, fit in. You know what? I hadn't thought about that, but you think about it. Someone like Steve Nash to go there, maybe provide a little bit of mentoring, so to speak, for Jeremy Lin, maybe.
Not only
plus
that,
limiting his minutes as well, so he's not going to really have to carry the load. But yeah, that'd be a great addition if they can fit him in, and he'd probably be willing to take a little bit of a salary cut to get whatever he needed. But hey, that is interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. I think the reason that it would work is he would bring leadership to the team that Carmelo Anthony really hasn't brought over to the Knicks, and neither has Amari Stoudemire. Plus, he'll be able to get back in connection with Amari. They had a recent they had good connection on the court, not so great connection off the court. But so I do feel that would be a great place for him. Now, moving over to Grant Hill, though, I don't really see much interest in Grant Hill from other teams, especially since he's ending the season with some knee injuries. He's aging, he's a star, but how much he can contribute to next year is going to be tough. So I would say that he most likely should retire, but you never know with the aging star like that.
Exactly. Or Grant Hill, like we said, would be in a straight position where he could, go to a team and maybe provide some leadership. Put in, 10, 15 minutes a game or something like that. But yeah, nobody's going to want him to be the focal point of their offense or of their team at any point now at this stage of his career.
Right, absolutely. And just to finalize on Steve Nash's career out here with Phoenix, he's done a great thing for Phoenix. He basically put them back on the map. A few years ago, they went all the way to the Western Conference Finals against the Spurs. So they've definitely had that great track record with Steve Nash. And what really showed was the last game against the Spurs, where the moment that Alvin Gentry went ahead and sat him down, the crowd started chanting, "We want Steve."
Yeah. And
to see that, to enjoy that, I'm glad that fans realize that, hey, this might be our last time, so we might as well enjoy the show while it's lasting.
Yeah, and the one other thing is, like, Steve Nash, he went there in Phoenix, and it was an unfortunate time for him because we just look at, as I always say, the San Antonio Spurs basically destroyed the Suns as a franchise. It was terrible. And anything that could go wrong did. You remember Tim Duncan hitting his only three-pointer of the season was in a playoff game at a critical moment against Phoenix. Also, Steve Nash, remember getting that gash on his nose that they couldn't close up, so he couldn't play. everything that could go wrong did go wrong against the Spurs, and then you wound up with the Suns making all these personnel moves on the court and in the front office just to be able to beat the Spurs. That was just that one team they could not get by. And ultimately, it's like Amari was there and gone, Shaquille O'Neal was there and gone. It was just, it's just one of those things.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And I have to still give credit to Alvin Gentry. That guy may potentially win Coach of the Year because of what he's done with such a team that really didn't have chemistry. I mean, this year they added Michael Redd, Shannon Brown, Sebastian Telfair, Rody Price, and rookie Marquise Morris. Mm-hmm. And to work with that and injured players, aging players, he did a really well job of getting close into the playoffs.
Right, exactly. So we'll go ahead and just be kind of a wait and see as the NBA playoffs get underway this weekend without the Phoenix Suns, but we'll see what the future holds for them. So let's go ahead and get from the hardwood to the baseball diamond. Let's talk about those Arizona D-backs, man. Surprising season last year, but this year, consistent in their inconsistency, I think, would be kind of a way that you'd want to put it out there.
Yeah, they are definitely consistent in being inconsistent.
Right.
And out here in the Valley, we call them the wacky D-backs. Mm-hmm. Because you never know what they're going to be giving you. As most fans probably know, they just lost a 3-game series against Philly, losing it 1-2. Now their record is 9-10, so they're 4 games back of first place from the Dodgers, and they're in 4th place in the NL West. Now, what they just came off of was a 16-game stretch. They had 16 back-to-back games. Now, that's rough. Yesterday they had a day off. Today they're picking it back up with Miami. Now, the only problem with that, though, is it's a 4-game stretch with the Miami Marlins.
Right.
And then they've got another 6 games on the road in the East still that they still have to face. So they have a tough road ahead of them. But what the real problem of this team right now is their batting is very minimal. It's at .234. They have an overall team rating of 4.43 ERA. And they're really not putting up the points that they need to with Justin Upton, being day-to-day and all of that.
Right. Exactly. Well, that's, you know what? That's one of the reasons why manager Kirk Gibson gets paid them big-time dollars out there in Arizona, is to take care of situations like this. So hopefully they can get that ship righted and, get back on the winning track. There's still plenty of games left in the season, only a game below 500. They still have, 143 games, I think, to go ahead and close that gap. So, they may do ultimately well okay there.
Right. And one thing I would point out to Phoenix fans is, don't worry about the Dodgers. I know they started out strong and they got a new owner and they got Magic Johnson, but believe me, even though they've got Kershaw and Matt Kemp killing it, they will fizzle out. They're kind of too hot, I think, right now.
Uh-oh. I don't know, man.
Remember,
you got Dodger fans out here. You might cause a furor. That's going to be one of my shows later on this year. It's a good time to mention it. I'm actually putting together a show called Dodger Dogs, which is going to be a weekly show about the Dodgers, broadcast from here in Southern California. That's one of my other inside sports ventures. So all you Dodger fans who may be watching the Arizona Sports Report right now, you have that to look forward to probably right after the All-Star break.
And I'm going to have to be calling into that, being that they're in the NL West. I got to put my 2 cents in there.
Oh, yeah, and everybody who watches this show so loyally, I expect call-ins, I expect some Twitter, some instant messaging, all that social media stuff that everyone does now, completely interactive, because, we do this show for the fans. That's what it comes down to. Hopefully raise the sporting IQs of everybody out there. But you know what? We thank everybody for tuning in. You know what? Let's get to that's it for the D-backs for now. We're going to save the Coyotes for later. Let's go ahead and talk some Arizona Cardinals football. And the draft was just yesterday. Now, everybody focused on Andrew Luck and RG3 or Robert Griffin III, in case you live in a cave and don't know who I was talking about. But when it comes down to it, I think the Cardinals might have done all right with the guy that they got, but he does, as do most of them, come with some baggage. Talk to me.
Yeah, they went ahead and drafted a wide receiver this year on the draft on their first-round pick. Now, one thing that I found very interesting about picking up a wide receiver, which is a good pickup for them because they needed to build a little bit more on offense on the wideout position. But the only thing that I had concern with was that Larry Fitzgerald had a lot to say to pick up this wide receiver.
Uh-huh.
Even though the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals went ahead and confirmed that Larry Fitzgerald really doesn't know much about each player on the team and what they're lacking. So with that statement and knowing that he had input into it, it kind of brings concern to me because he's the one who was backing up Kevin Cobb full-heartedly when he came over here.
Right.
But then when Peyton Manning was available, he went ahead and visited him and even took him, brought him over to the stadium from the airport.
Well,
so
I'd have to interject here, and that's the thing is that it's one thing to back a quarterback, but then you have a chance to go to, go for someone who's a legend. Of course, you're going to kind of back that because that's an immediate impact. I can make lots of comparisons there. So it's kind of like if you were, never mind. I'm not going to go there with you because it'll get you in trouble. But anyways.
But no,
if you were going out
that,
with a very pretty girl and you had a chance to date a supermodel, it's like that. You know what I'm saying? Let me just metaphorically
I
out there. Yeah.
But see, here's where I'm leading with that. Even though he did all of that, Larry Fitzgerald is still one of the top 3 receivers in the NFL today.
Right.
He's also one of the only receivers that's offering a training program for children in Arizona to go and play with him for $150. You can go ahead and learn how to play like Larry Fitzgerald. He's also doing that.
Wait a minute, $150? Can I get in on that?
Hey, you better believe it. All ages count.
Okay, all right, man. I'm in. Maybe take both of us for $250.
Hey, there's no problem with walking with him. The guy's he's an all-star, so I think he'll be reasonable.
Well, I think too, we got to look at that was Michael Floyd out of Notre Dame and 13th overall pick. Now, when you look at this, though, he's 6'3" and 220. If you remember, in the Super Bowl year, the other bookend there for Larry Fitzgerald was Anquan Boldin. And, Boldin went 6'1", 223. So maybe he's looking at that, looking at this guy's skill set. He could have another and from what I understand, Floyd has big man skills, so to speak, as far as, the jumping ability and that type of a skill set. The problem is that he's had, I think he was caught 3 times for underage drinking. There's been a DUI. He's been arrested. A lot of things that they go through in college, which, anyone who's gone to college, you say, oh, really, underage drinking? I've never heard of such a thing, But it's just a matter of, is that stuff that he was doing as kind of a foolish kid in college, just kind of having fun, and is he ready to actually be a man when he comes into camp? Or is it stuff that's ultimately going to be his downfall? And that is really maybe the tempest in a teapot there in Arizona.
Well, see, piggybacking off of that, Larry Fitzgerald was also a wide receiver who came into the league kind of a knucklehead. All he cared about was himself, and all he wanted was the ball. But then he started realizing that this game's about the team. As long as I put the team first, we're going to win. And that year that he put that focus, those 2 years that he put that focus, they went to the Super Bowl with Kurt Warner and of course, him and Anquan Boldin. Now, with this pickup with Floyd, because Larry Fitzgerald, I go back to the point that he had input on it. The one thing that I see that's good about that is that he's willing to bring in another wide receiver who's going to take away throws that are going to him. So he realizes that and knows that this is a beneficial move for the team itself. And that's a really good thing to see as a player, especially one that's the face of the franchise.
Exactly. And Larry Fitzgerald, like I always say about him, and there's really only 3 receivers in the NFL. There's Larry Fitzgerald, there's Andre Johnson, there's Calvin Johnson. You can shake them up and mix them up however you want. It's going to come out those in the top 3. Everyone else is on that second tier, but those are the top 3. And my personal favorite, well, I like Fitzgerald. I could say Fitzgerald. Yeah, he's my favorite.
Yeah, I think.
All right, well, hopefully things go well there for the Cardinals, but you know what? There's a team there that really deserves some recognition out there. They've gone through the handshake line in the playoffs many times. Well, not many times, but every time they've gone, it's because the other team is saying, hey, you know what? It was the first round. Thanks for playing. We're moving on, and you're not. But finally, After all these years, we got to go back to 1987 when they were the Winnipeg Jets, the last time they actually won a playoff series. This is their first playoff series as the Phoenix Coyotes. Shane Doan, a great career, at least a borderline Hall of Famer at this point, 35 years old, getting past the first round for the first time. Mike Smith, the waiver wire pickup, who has played like an absolute all-star in net. Let's give it up for the Phoenix Coyotes, man.
Yeah, you know it, man. Shane Doan is definitely earned this trip into the second round. And the monkey is finally off of their backs, so now they don't have to worry about getting past the first round. They can just focus on playing very good hockey, you know. And you're right. Mike Smith shut out the Blackhawks in Chicago for Game 6. He did great. Oliver Ekman-Larsson did great, and Gilbert Buell all did fantastic for the team and really put forth a fantastic effort. Now, the whole series, though, was incredible. Going 5 games consistently into overtime, tying a record from, I believe it was like 1967 or 1957, they had tied a record for most consecutive overtime playoff games. And one of the key factors that I saw in this last game, which I felt was the first very good game in the series by the Coyotes themselves, was they actually won 2 out of the 4 power plays. And that's really what got them moving forward other than the goal in the second period.
Right.
So, I mean, they had a fantastic ending game there. Now, here's something I want to bring up about the series itself, just to kind of give you an idea of how well Mike Smith really is doing. Corey Crawford had 176 shots on goal against him, and he had 159 saves. Mike Smith had 253 shots against his goal, 77 more shots on goal in a 6-game series. That is unheard of that it's so high. And he still came out with a 95% goal against average.
Save percentage.
Save percentage.
Exactly,
So,
and they outscored the Hawks 17-12 over the course of the series, including, as you say, that 4-0 shutout in that the clincher in Game 6.
And see, that's what I find incredible, that we outscored them so much, even though it's only five more goals than them. But to think that we didn't even have the puck in their side of the ice for most of the game. All we really did was, once there was an opportunity, we really took advantage of it. After the first 4 games, after all those headhunting hits were done, we really started stepping up on our checks as well. And when I have to admit, my favorite player so far out of this entire stretch has been Oliver Ekman-Larsson. When he had to step up against some of the best players in the NHL, like Patrick Sharp, Jonathan Tones, and Patrick Kane, he's done very well against them, and I think he's going to be a key to winning this game.
Hey, just a second. I've got Michael Bodker online, Mikhail Bodker online, too. He wants to talk to you. He says, hey, what about my 2 overtime goals, homie? He just wants to know.
Mikhail,
I'm not saying that's Bodker who wants to know about that, man. Did he just get dissed?
No, absolutely not.
All right,
Mikhail,
all right.
Mikhail, let me go and talk to Mikhail real quick. Mikhail, my bad, brother. I did not mean to leave you out of any discussion we're having here. What I was getting to next was that if any game was to go into overtime, the one player we need on there is Mikhail Bodker.
There you go. You know what? So let's take a look at that series coming up, though. It's one thing to get by Chicago. Chicago has a pretty good defensive core there. They do, with Seabrook and Duncan Keith anchoring the blue line for them. But now we're talking about the Nashville Predators. We're talking about Shea Weber, who is a Norris Trophy candidate. We're talking about Ryan Suter, who's as tough as they come. And we're talking about Pekka Rinne as well, who is a finalist for the Vezina Trophy in net. So that should be an interesting goaltending duel. Mike Smith on one side, Pekka Rinne on the other.
Yeah, and this. Well, to be honest, I think what's going to happen is that this is going to be one of the most similarly matched teams that are going to be facing each other. Both teams are strong defensive-minded teams, have incredible goalies who I believe Mike Smith should have also been up for the Vezina finalist, but, Pekka Rinne got it right now in the running, excuse me. But, and both teams are doing well on the opportunity goals. Now, the only problem that that Phoenix might seriously face is obviously we just finished a game 3 days ago, and the Predators finished quite a while ago because they finished Detroit 4-1, and so they have a little bit more rest in them. They've got a little bit more time to heal. So I think that might be the only problem, that they might come out a little bit faster on the ice.
Yeah. So that may be a difference in game one, and that is one of those things they talk about, the fatigue factor, because it was a tough series against Chicago, even though Phoenix dispatched them and really with relative ease in that game 6. But Chicago has a lot of guys who can skate and move the puck, and Phoenix was on their game, really, to beat them. And 5 of the games going into overtime, that just tells you how close that series really was.
Right. And what I also saw was we won 3 games in Chicago, but we lost 2 games at home, and those home games are key. You got your fan base, you've got people backing you, you're on home ice, you're comfortable. We have to be able to take those games. I mean, winning on a opponent's home ice is fantastic, but winning on your own home ice is what fans really want to see. So they need to pick it up, and they really need to finish it out here in Glendale.
Exactly. So I believe, Phoenix does have a home ice advantage there, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, that series gets underway tonight.
Yes, it does. It gets on at 6 p.m. at Jobbing.com Arena.
All right, fantastic. So you know what? I have to press you. Do I really want to press you for a pick here? I know you're an Arizona dude, and you want the Coyotes to win. But looking at it and going with your head as opposed to your heart, who do you see winning this series?
I have to be honest. I'm not going with my heart. I am going with my head. I do have a feeling that the Coyotes are going to make a serious run for this Stanley Cup this year, and I do believe that they will finish this series out, and they'll finish it 4-1.
Wow, you're only giving 1 game to the Predators.
I am giving 1 game to the Predators, and again, the reason I'm doing that is this is the first time the team has passed the first round. They are excited. They want to get on the ice. And again, with Mike Smith, as long as he can keep up that play, because we really need him to keep up that play, because we're playing horrible offense, we should be able to take this down.
Okay, well, we'll see. And, just to mention, just in the Western Conference Final, I mean, the 4 goaltenders going against each other. It's Mike Smith going against Pekka Rinne, and then you got the Kings in St. Louis, so you got Jonathan Quick going against Brian Elliott. So some fantastic, stellar goaltending we're going to see, definitely. But just for the record, I got to admit, I did pick the Nashville Predators to win this series when I did my other show called Talkin' Hockey, which I do with Lonnie Schwartz of Hockey54.com. So I did pick the Nashville Predators, but who knows? I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I'll probably be wrong again, but I've got the Predators in this one.
All right, man. We'll see. Keep in mind, even the so-called experts get it wrong sometimes.
That's true. Well, I went 6-2 in the first round. So, really my expertise hinged on the outcome of 2 Game 7s there. So I could have very easily wound up being 4-4, but instead I'm 6-2. So that means I have bragging rights over, somewhere, if I go to a sports bar or something like that. All right, so looks like that's about it. Arizona Sports Report. Any final words out there, Mr. Goyle?
Fans, the draft's still going. Keep a lookout. Cardinals are making a lot of changes here, and as the season comes around, I'll keep giving you updates as we go through training camps and OTAs. All
right, fantastic. Thank you, everybody. So here at Inside Sports, changing the world one sport at a time. Follow us on Twitter at The Inside Sports. This has been the Arizona Sports Report, which is an Inside Sports production. So for Sean Goyle, I'm Charles E. Smith, Jr., and we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.